Colin, do you think some of these messages from these formations might be messages of enlightenment, knowledge, or are they trying to point us out to some kind of impending doom?
My view is that if you kind of take a broad perspective and looking at very specific information that's come in, we can talk about very specific information in particular crop designs.
Okay.
And then you kind of look at it, things like, well, maybe I should just start here because to build the picture, one looks at a design that appeared in England in the early 90s, which was a scaled replica of the solar system. This design, I threw as much as I could at it. I certainly spent a lot of time over there in England in this design with the aerial information and ground information and passing that to Dr. John Alburn, Professor Gerald Hawkins, then head of astronomy, University of Boston, Professor Robert Hadley, University of Connecticut, and they kind of looked at this design and looked at the numbers and the ratios, and there was no question what it was. This was a replica of our own solar system, a very accurate one, and it gave us a date. And this date in September 2033 meant absolutely nothing to us other than it was a date when the next alignment that was in the field would actually take place in our solar system from a particular place, of course. You're looking at this in a multidimensional aspect, whereas we were looking at 2D in the field. And that only later became significant when my wife and I were asked to write the Complete Idiot's Guide to 2012, and in that research we came across the same date, and it was very interesting that not only did the other information that we were getting across a whole broad spectrum of inputs, looking as if we were heading towards a kind of a temporary period of chaos and a transitional period, and I'll get to the reasoning for that, around the 2012 period. But there was a new cycle, which the Mayan called the first Khotun. There is a Khotun period into the Golden Age. It was beyond 2012, and that ends in September 2033. And so what did this design tell us? Well, the planet Earth in that solar system in the crops field was missing. And so that, of course, pose two questions. What does it mean that we're going not to be here? Or is it that the information that's being conveyed is to us, we're being singled out to inform us that it is us that the conversation is taking place with? And so the solar system meant something. The date now means something. We had, some of your listeners will remember this. It's been forgotten by many, but in 1977, a very strange metallic voice broke in on British television. And again, it's what's happened to me throughout my life, it seems, George. I had purchased on this day, at this moment in time, a brand new, my very first tape recorder. It was a huge, great thing.
Okay.
And down on the floor, I had it turned on. I put the microphone across the floor, and I was testing it when I heard in the background the newscaster, ITN, Independent Television Network, giving the news. And suddenly I became aware, I was recording this, and I became aware that his voice was breaking up, and so was the picture. And it eventually just went into kind of like hash browns. It was just disappeared. And over the top came this metallic voice, very strange. The recording is on the new DVD that I've got here, Conscious Circles, and that recording is on there. It was heard by millions of people, but from only two transmitters, and the two transmitters concerned transmitted this information into the most prolific area of crop circles that had just begun in that same area, 1 year before. 1976 was the first crop circle in this particular area where I lived. And so, there were two things. What did the voice say? And it spoke also of this period that we're coming into, and the full details, to say, is on the DVD, and what people can hear it for themselves. So there was information. And that information tied in with the crop circle design of the solar system, which was in the same area. Mm-hmm. Then we had, in 2002, a crop design with an ET. Many people know this.
Oh, I remember design. That one. That was incredible.
They're absolutely incredible, with a disk. Now, that disk conveyed ASCII code, computer code, which was deciphered by my good friend, now deceased Paul Weigay, who suddenly passed away in the middle of this research. I should say his body was discovered washed up in the English, off the edge of the English Channel, to be specific. But Paul deciphered that, and it was the same information. And very consistently, that we were heading into a period where we must pull from the minds of the political people in particular truth, that we must find who we are, and that was the general message. And so as the crop designs have evolved themselves, and they've given us family types, astronomical, mathematical, they too do point towards a period of chaos and a transitional period. And so wherever you look at this, whether you're looking at even the 2012 Mayan prophecy, which links itself naturally to this, because, I know there are a lot of people that don't believe that it says this or it says that. We've got at least two interpretations from people that have spent years looking at these calendars, mm-hmm. and October is one particular date which is now passed of an end cycle.
Right.
21 December, 2012 is generally considered to be the end date of the master cycle, 26,000 years, heading into the first cocoon of the Golden Age. Well, the prophecy itself talks, of course, about all these things, and it talks about climate change. We have broken that down ourselves, with a subheading of global warming, which is because the scientists tend to believe, I know again there are different views on this, that the climate change is going to settle out on the warm side and that we're moving into a warming period. It's another, we can debate it, but in this 2012 prophecy, we're also looking, and I'm going through categories that all point us in the same direction. The solar cycle 24. While we're in it, it's come from an exceptional low. It's beginning now to ratchet up, and that too is anticipated to be part of this equation next year. We're 3 weeks away from 2012. Population explosion. This is talked of. We're past 7 billion people. If you look at the health chart for planet Earth and humanity on planet Earth, these are very important factors. If you look at the economy and the economic collapse, these are decouplings of a system. I mean, today as we speak, George, we're looking at the U.S., and the U.S. is not alone in this, but the U.S. national gross debt is $15 trillion, 55 billion. I'm reading it off the clock. 15 million, and you can keep the change. I mean, this equates to 313 million people sharing that debt at $48,000 per person in the United States. The UK just yesterday vetoed the latest deal for the euro, which now has isolated Great Britain, and whatever that means is coming. And all of these things play into, political and religious social tension. This is referred to in the prophecy too. The earth changes. I mean, just before I move from that political, religious, and social tension, we've all observed what's happened in simply the last 12 months. The Arab Spring, the Occupy movement. These were inevitable developments in a suppressed and badly treated society. Where the political end...
Long overdue, too, wasn't it?
long overdue. We know what happened media-wise. It's a whole other conversation. I know you've had it on the show. Denied initially that they were even down there in New York. Just ignore them; they'll go away. Well, no, they haven't gone away, but they're hippies from the '60s. Well, no, they're actually not. They're office workers. They're people from the store down the street here. They're normal people. I was one of them for a while in New Haven in my local Connecticut movement. There's something going on here, and this will not go away. This is all part of the tension that is bringing us to the end of a pretty actually despicable cycle. The next one must be better because now we have got to create a better environment, a more honest environment in which we restructure. This is the decoupling that's going on. It's not all bad because, we have to find a place. We're at 0 point and recouple with new minds, new honesty, and that must be shared by all. As I say that no government, no organization have the right to dictate the development of human consciousness, which they do if they're not giving us the truth. And it is the truth that will take us to that better place. And, broadly speaking, George, I think that that basically, if there is a message here across that multiplex of inputs, I think it's important to keep them together because they're all steering in the same direction. It is what they are saying, and it's what we know in our hearts. We simply cannot seem to break the mold that we have. I mean, and again, I know I've said a lot there, but here's a real difficult position, and it is this. This is one of the dilemmas we have on this planet today. Governments are machines. They're made up of people, but they're machines. And when you have a machine, which is a war machine, whether it's for national security, the longevity of your people, these are all in their own right reasonable things. But how do you inject love and compassion into a war machine? We've got to start. I was with, well, I won't go into that, some government people just a short while ago. Dennis Kucinich, for one. Yeah. Yes, he was with us. And, it is right. He has this view, and I share it, that the first thing we have to do is we have got to enforce, not encourage, enforce the government's work for us. They are there to represent us, and there is not one on this planet, as we speak tonight, George, that has a Department of Peace. Not one. And we have war departments, we have defense departments, and all the rest, and that whole industrial, military complex that's driving this, where the 1% are driving the planet to a standstill and everybody on it. There's not one that is geared to peace, and that is what we have to demand begins very soon.
I think you're right.
It's kind of, in the environment in which we're in, it's almost a joke, but that's where we're going, and they're going to be forced there.
Well, maybe these messages are basically, get your act together, Earthlings, or you will have all kinds of problems.
Yeah, I would go with that. That's another take on exactly what it is saying. That is what it's saying. When it comes to consciousness, there's another way of kind of, because we're broadly speaking about developing, developing who we are, evolving into better people from the past. There's a new study, and it's very interesting. I'm going to be posting more of this on the website in the next few days, from a Professor Marcus Pembry, Institute of Child Health in UCL, working with a professor, I've got it just here, Wolf Rake. I don't know these people personally. I certainly would like to, from an institute in Cambridge, England. And they have discovered something really quite remarkable that's going to change a lot of things. And they were looking at emotional stress factors in children. This is where it came from. They have now, this is a long study, and it's just shown, proven, that, I'll give myself as an example. Everybody listening, this applies to, that we have these gene sets that are very specific to illnesses. You know, this particular gene set will cause this illness and cause another illness, So we're looking at the DNA strand. Now, these gene sets are turned on or off by our parents. Now in other words, our health today, our well-being, who we are today, has been affected by somebody else's experience. And it is your father's experience just before puberty. It's your mother's experience just before birth when she's in the womb of her mother. Now, if when those parents have particular emotional experiences, and we're looking specifically at the stress hormones, so something, we'll say 9/11 happens, and the stress effect, the hormonal response in that person, in your father or your mother, in that particular time, even in the womb of her mother, that triggers, has a memory which causes a particular genetic set to be turned on or off, whether it's mum's influence or dad's influence, depending upon their experience in you today. And so we've got here for the first time the partial picture of an experience we're having, who we are, our physical wellness, and our emotional state, who we are today, is a record of our parents' experiences. But it goes further, that once that gene is turned on or off in me, my subset, as a result of an experience my father had just before puberty, or my mother in the womb, that now is passed on to my child, in my case is my daughter, and to her children. And so evolving consciousness can be seen here, that the emotional experience of somebody else is recorded and manifests by genetic coding in me. So I am part of my parents' experience, but I am part of a collective series of experiences. So this is evolving information from one generation to another. And so when we're looking we've just been talking about the prophecy and the future, when we're looking for a coherence, and that's the word, a coherence of love and respect in the future, we're looking to be affecting future generations. So we have to have that emotional experience, which is across the board within our society. And we don't have it right now. There's not enough of that emotional quality in our society. And when it is there and we experience it, we will be turning on subsets of genes to future generations. I mean, it is evolving consciousness that we're looking at, and we've got to get to work on this, George.
Okay, let's take your phone calls this hour now with Colin Andrews as we talk about crop formations right here on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back with Colin Andrews. Colin, before we go and take calls here, you were talking about that. Was he a government employee again?
Former, George. He was former FBI anti-terrorist agent. His name is Alan Ouimet. He's a friend of my wife, Cynthia, and I, and he was very skeptical about the 2012 prophecy. Gave us a hard time, actually, as we were writing the book. But eventually, of course, the book was written and published now 2 years, I believe, ago. And he purchased a copy, and we got a phone call. Colin, I need to have dinner. So we went to dinner, and he had not only read it, but and saw the sources and got the information, but he did a chart. He's a master astrologer. He's a member of the American Society of Astrologers, and he said it's absolutely shocking. The chart for 2012, December 2012, is extraordinary. And of course, we had dinner, and we've had a number of others since looking at this. He's written at my request a full article about it with all of the details, which again I've got on my website. That's colinandrews.net for anybody who wants to have a look at it. And it is shocking. He wondered, in fact, how he could actually put it into print without frightening everybody. And it really, the primary pieces that were so concerning, are so concerning, are the political and religious conflicts that the chart brings up. It actually brings up a very rare finger of God alignment. Anybody into astrology will know this. It's a very rare finger of God alignment, which is right there on the nose for 21 December 2012. It's absolutely incredible. He has highlighted two countries that come out of this chart really badly, Israel and Iran. And this is several years ago, remember. And it highlights a nuclear situation. Now, of course, in me speaking now, people will be, well, oh my God, this is scary. Yes, it is scary if you look only at that window. We spoke about this, so what in this could we talk about to give people hope? I mean, where should we be placing ourselves? What should we be doing with our concerns? Now, there are certain birth signs that come out of that same period really very well. So it's as if society kind of leans over in the direction of other birth signs to look for the guidance and for the help and the assurance and hopefully for the right decisions. So if anybody wants to look at that, I raised it because that's really what the Mayans were doing. They were looking at the astrology and astronomy. Alan has looked at the astrology and in the modern way. And indeed, he took his findings to the American Society of Astrologers, and they put it through their National Congress, and they, too, confirmed that, yes, that's absolutely amazing and very concerning. So, again, very consistent. The 2012 is it. It's the bottom of the end of a cycle, but a wonderful transition is what we've got to make it into the future.
Perfect. So don't have to worry about the planet collapsing on us or anything.
I don't think so. It isn't anything that says it's finished. It's saying another way. I'm with you. I'm sure that I think you're in line with the thinking and the right kind of thinking. And as to the Eurozone, that this is a very, very major situation that's taking place over there. I mean, as again the Maya said that those super empires, the great empires of the day, will be falling and new ones will take their place. Not hard to see when the British situation, of course the British Empire is well behind it. Its prominent place in the European Union is now tremendously in jeopardy as a result of them pulling out the euro new agreements just 2 days ago. Goodness knows where it's going to find itself. It's in tremendous debt, as is the United States. So two superpowers from the past are certainly falling apart.
What was your quick reaction, Colin, to the White House basically saying no credible evidence exists about ETs visiting the planet?
I was, who gets shocked at anything anymore? I thought it was terrible. An opportunity to come clean, an opportunity to at least to open a door, and frankly, I'm going to use the term, I know it's frowned upon, this word lying, but when you have your own officials, speaking off the record, when you have your own military talking about nuclear missile silos being closed down when there's UFOs over the base, and then we are told from the White House there's no credible evidence of that the extraterrestrials are here on planet Earth. I use the word lie. And that, I'm afraid, is what it is. I know that doesn't help engage conversation, but if that's where we are today, then change is coming, as we keep being told. But it's not the kind of change these guys are thinking about. Well, we got to, that's no. I was very unimpressed, George.
It is what it is. Colin, thank you so much for being on the program.